right, good afternoon. This is November 4th, Monday, and today we're talking about fraction decimal percent conversion. In your class, you should get this resource paper. It's a bright pink color that will go in the resource section. This is a quick reference for when you're going between any forms of numbers. So in this, if you're reading it, if you are starting with a fraction, okay, so you start with a fraction if you wanted to go to a percent. This tells you how to do that. Or if you're starting with a fraction and wanting to go to a decimal. Same thing in this middle column. It's what you start with and then what you are going to. I'm not going to go through all this right now because, again, we should know about half of it. And then in today's lesson, we're going to be talking about how to go to percents. On the other side, it has equivalent decimal percents and fractions. Okay, so the decimal 1, like the whole number 1, is equal to 100%. Okay, so I like to ask the question, how can 1 be equal to 100? How are those equivalent to each other? Yusra. Okay, because 100%, that percent part, percent, is for every 100. So when it's 100%, it's 100 out of 100, which would simplify to that 1. That's how the number 1 is equal to the 100%. Yes, sir? Okay. Ian? Yes. If you got 2 wholes, that would be 200%. Double of 100. Okay. So let's go ahead into our notes for today. So where do we see percents in the real world? Like, let's start raising our hands. Emily. Okay. Yes. Okay. 50 percent of a pool, amount, I guess. That's the way to put it. Peyton.
Statistics wise.
Statistics. Thatcher. Taxes. Ella. Yes. So TV. Peter.
Like the thing you pay off.
That thing that you pay on the check when your parents are buying food. What's that thing called? The tip.
Oh, yeah.
The tip. Vicky. Battery percentage on those things that we stare at all day. Okay, batteries.
Those are bad for your eyes.
Yeah, they are bad for your eyes, but that's not going to stop anyone. When we go on to hack, we check our. When we're talking about weather and the chance of it raining or snowing or. I'm sorry? Sure, yeah, but I'm being more, instead of just writing statistics, I'm just going to put weather because then we can actually understand and follow that. Estimates, like what do you mean? Okay. When we go into the store and okay, statistics or probability. Yeah, okay. We could go on. Discounts. Okay, when something's on sale. Clearance. When the video game goes on sale. When the PS4000 goes on sale. Okay? But a percent. A percent is a ratio, right? Because it's always comparing a number to 100. Okay? And that compares a part to a whole. In percents, my whole is always going to be 100. Okay, so in the percent, 30%, that means I have 30 comparing to the 100%. 30 to 100, or 30 out of 100. We know that we can write ratios as fractions, and then we can always turn fractions into decimals. If you look at your test review, if you've already started working on that, because it's due on Thursday, one of the questions is, what is this ratio as a decimal? Now, Ms. Lytle never really explicitly talked about ratios being decimals, but I did say ratios can be written as fractions, and to turn a fraction into a decimal, we just divide, okay? So, percent, again, equals per 100 because cents. When we think of cents, we think of Monies. We think of pennies. And how many pennies equals one full dollar? 100. If we think of a century, how many years is that? 100. Okay, so percent means per 100. All percents can be written with the percent as the numerator. Let's see if I can write that. Numerator goes up top, and 100 as the denominator because we will always compare it to 100. Okay, so looking at these examples, I want you to write the fraction, decimal, and percent that represents each and every one of them. There are 6. I'm going to give you like 4 minutes. Pause the video and play when you're ready to check. All right, for the fraction of the first one. Oh, that's going to be way too late. Fraction for this first one, Yusra. Okay, originally, before you simplified it, you got 24 out of 100. Yes, we can simplify to 6/25. Okay? We do want, for today, we're probably going to leave everything in hundreds just so you can see that relationship, but typically we will want you to simplify. Again, just for today, we're not going to do it a bunch because I want you to see that hundred relationship. That decimal, Yusra, would be?
The decimal would be 2400.
2400, and the percent would be 24%. Again, we want to leave it because then it's just the numerator of that fraction. For the next one, right next to it, Lily, what you get?
63 over 100.
63 over 100. What?
The decimal I got 6300.
Wow, look at that connection. And then
for the percent I got 63%.
Great. Okay. For the next one, Kinsey.
I got 15 over 100.
15 over 100.
I got 1500.
Great.
And I got 15%.
15%. So notice, what do you see happening to the decimal between the decimals and the fraction? To go from the decimal to, rephrase that. What do you see happening to the decimal placement from decimal to percent? Peyton.
It's getting moved by 2 powers of 10, which is also 100.
And it's getting multiplied by 2 powers of 10, or times 100. So it's moving 2 to the right. If I went to the other way from percent to decimal, if it went from 15% to 0.15, it's moving 1 to the left. So it's being divided by 2 powers of 10, aka 100. Thatcher, that next one.
The fraction I got 1600, or simplifies to 4/25.
Correct.
That's why I got 0.16. And for percent I got 16%.
Great. Next one. It's not out of 100, so my fraction's not going to have 100. Shocker. I know. Ian. 2/3. And class. I'm sorry to take this away from you, Ian. But class, what is 2/3 as a decimal? 0.6 repeating. I bet you knew that. Okay. But I just wanted to make sure everyone. Okay. It is 0.6 repeating forever and ever and ever and ever. Do we multiply by repeating decimals? No. Okay. So I want to talk about how you get, if you were starting with a fraction and went to the percent of this. I'm going to do this in the bright color. So if I was going from 2/3 to a percent, percents are always out of 100. Okay. So I need to figure out how to go from 3 to 100. Is that scale factor going to be a whole number? Is it going to be a terminating, an ending decimal? No. Okay. To find that scale factor, we have to do 100 divided by 3. 3 does not go into 1, but it goes into 10 3 times. I get 1, bring down the 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times. Gives me 9. I'm left over with 1. I've run out of numbers, so I have to add my decimal and I have to add my 0 to bring it down. But guess what? It's going to keep repeating. Okay? But I don't want to multiply by that repeating decimal, but 3 repeating we know is 1/3. So that's the same as 33 and 1/3. Okay? So that's my scale factor. To go from 3 to 100, I have to multiply by 33 and 1/3. Whatever I do to the bottom, class, I do to the top. So if I double that, if I go from 33, double of that is 66. If I have 1/3, double of that is 2/3. 2/3. Okay? So that percent would just be the numerator of that number. So it would be 66 and 2/3 percent, or I could write 66.6 repeating percent. If I put 66%, is that the same thing?
No.
If I put 67% because I just felt like rounding, is that correct?
No.
Okay? Sometimes we will put about, but you don't do that about until the end. Okay? If you do not put that repeating, or you do not put 2/3, it will be wrong. We will not give partial. That is the one that we are like so about. I'm sorry if you can't see that emotion in the video, but like no, it's a yes or no. You either have a repeating, or you show that 2/3, or it's wrong. You start. Then that's not, you can only put that repeating part over the decimal, because decimals can go on forever. The whole number, if you did 66 repeating, that would change the, like,
I mean, like, you know how people accidentally do the whole number also, and what does that mean?
I don't know, like it just means it's wrong. I don't know. Like I know what you're saying, but just don't do it. Yes. Okay, great, awesome. All right, the last one, that fraction. Ian, do you want to do that since I took that other one away from you? Yeah. 1/2, 0.5, and 50%.
50 cents.
50 cents. Okay. Quiet. Okay, so we already know to go from a fraction to decimal, we will always divide the top by the bottom. You can put the technical terms of numerator divided by denominator, but I think you get the point. You will always, always, always divide the top by the bottom when doing fraction to decimal, and that is also the same thing as our horse and our cowboy that a few of us have seemed to forgot. Okay? Horse and cowboy. That is something we've been doing for months now. Okay? For decimal to fraction, what did Miss Lyle teach us?
Divide. Write as a write it simple.
There we go. Someone got it. Okay, say it. Write it. Simplify it. Okay? Yes, I could write something else in that paragraph, but I'm just doing what we should know. I think one person does. Okay? The only new part now is including that percent. Okay? As it said in the flip lesson, to go from a decimal to a percent, we multiply by 100. And when we go from a percent to a decimal, we divide. Okay? So let's do some quicks just to show you how that works. So again, if I'm starting with a percent, if I had 13%, how would I change that to a decimal? I'm starting with a percent, I'm going to a decimal, I would divide by 100, which just moves that decimal place in 13. It's starting here, I move it 1, 2 to right there. So that would be 0 and 1300. Okay? I like to think of it as a different way. A slightly easier way that I think of, instead of remembering when I divide and when I multiply, is I think of the letters DP. I always think of Dr. Pepper. Okay, it's a drink that some people use, and it's very helpful. Okay, so the way that this works is it depends on what I'm starting with. So in this 13%, I'm starting with a percent. The D stands for decimal, P stands for percent. If I'm starting with a percent and my decimal's here, I need to move it 1, 2 times to make it a decimal. Okay, so that's, if I'm moving it that way, if I'm moving it to the left, that means I'm doing what with 100? Dividing by 100. If I start with a number like this, I'm starting with a decimal, okay? So I'm starting here, and I need to move it 1, 2 to the right, okay, which is doing what with 100? Multiplying. So I think of Dr. Pepper because if I do it in that order, it always tells me I need to either move it 2 to the left or 2 to the right, just depending on what I'm talking about. I don't even need to do that math. It's just really easy mental math. So that 43, again, it starts as a decimal. I move it over 1, 2 to make it a percent. I move it over 1, 2. That would be what percent? 43%. Okay, so let's do some quick checks. Again, the goal is to make this sort of mental math. If I have 1.67, I want that as a percent. If I have 7%, I want that as a decimal. Okay? So, take a second, write down your answers. Don't even do the math, just write down your answers. Quiet. Quiet. No. Come back. Okay, in that first one, I'm starting with a decimal. So that means I'm starting with a decimal. I move it 2 places to the right. Okay, 1, 2. That becomes what percent? 167%. Yes, I can have bonus points. 67 bonus points. Okay? If I'm starting with a percent, that means my decimal is moving 1, 2 to the left. Okay? So it's starting after the 7. That's where that decimal point is. I move it 1, 2, and I fill in with a 0. Okay? No matter what, even if there's not numbers this way or that way, I fill in with zeros, but it always moves twice. Okay? Are we feeling pretty all right about this?
Yes.
All right. So your classwork right now is those 4 problems. To clarify just real quick, you should be good with these 3 forms: fraction, decimal, and percent, as well as the hundredths grid. Just to review a few parts. Okay, let me just do this first one with you. Jason surveyed his class about their favorite animal. 12 out of 25 of them claimed their favorite was a dog. I don't know if that's word for word. Okay, so if it says 12 out of 25, would that be my fraction, decimal, or my percent?
Fraction.
That is a fraction. It is my part out of my whole. 12 out of 25. Okay, I'm going to work that to a percent because that's probably the easiest. I can just work that to times 4 to get it out of 100. Percents are always out of 100, so I can just set that fraction, get it to 100. 4 times 12 is 48, so that would be 48%. Yes. Great. Okay, so that decimal, again, learning what I just did, 48%, I use Dr. Pepper, meaning my decimal moves 2 places to the, I'm starting with a percent, I move it 1, 2, to the left, so that'd be 0.48. Okay, for a grid, I'm going to color in 48 of those squares. Again, I'm trying to go quickly because the bell is going to ring soon. Calm down. Okay, but percent bars, the maximum percent on a percent bar is 100%. So if I'm doing 48%, confusing. Okay, so 48%, we got that. We would shade it in to 48%. But on the number line, the number line is going to start at 0, and the whole number that I put over here is going to be, no, 1. Okay, because that percent is out of 100. Percent means out of 100. It is not equal to 1. It is less than 1. It is equal to 4,800. So it's going to be about halfway between 0 and 1. If I were plotting it, it would be, I would do 48% right there. But I would more likely put 0.48. Okay? I would copy that down. Okay, because again, 48% means out of 100. Yes, sir.
You put both of these.
One or the other. I'm just showing you that it is equivalent. Okay, so your homework is the homework section. Work on that review sheet. I would get the first 6 problems done tonight. Okay, the test review you picked up last week. check on Canvas for the key to tonight's homework. Goodbye. Bye.